What if I told you that the thing you're most proud of about yourself is actually a wound? Not a weakness, not a flaw, a wound that learned how to look like strength. Right now, there are patterns running in your life. The way you love, the way you pull away, the way you laugh off pain, the way you never ask for help, and you've called them your personality for years. But here's what the research actually says. Many of those patterns aren't who you are. They're what you became to survive. And stay with me, because by the end of this video, I'm going to show you the single most powerful shift you can make. One that psychologists say can genuinely begin to rewire these patterns. And most people never even consider it because they don't realize the pattern exists in the first place. That's exactly what we're building toward today. But first, we need to talk about what's actually happening inside your brain. Because until you understand why you do what you do, you can't change it. And what I'm about to share might be the most uncomfortable mirror you've ever looked into. Psychologists call them traumatic adaptations. And here's the simplest definition I can give you. They are behaviors, thought patterns, and emotional responses that your nervous system developed, not out of weakness, but out of intelligence. Your brain found a way to keep you safe in an environment that felt unsafe. The problem is, you're not in that environment anymore, but your brain never got the memo. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. These adaptations don't show up looking like trauma. They show up looking like personality traits. They show up looking like virtues. They show up looking completely normal. Because you've been living with them so long, you genuinely can't see them anymore. Let me walk you through 5 of the most common ones. Number 1, extreme independence. Never asking for help. Ever. How many of you just felt a little proud hearing that? Yeah, that's me. I handle my own stuff. I don't need anyone. I know, because that's exactly how it's supposed to feel. Here's the truth that no motivational poster will ever tell you. Pathological independence is not a superpower. It's a shield. When a child grows up in an environment where their emotional needs were consistently unmet, where asking for comfort led to dismissal, where needing something led to disappointment, the brain makes a very logical calculation. It says, dependence equals danger. So it builds a wall. And then it calls the wall self-sufficiency. Your brain literally wired itself to equate needing people with getting hurt. And over time, that wiring became so deep, so automatic, that it started to feel like preference, like character, like strength. But here's what's actually happening underneath. Every time someone offers to help you and you say, "No, I'm fine," your nervous system isn't choosing independence. It's avoiding the risk of being let down again. It's still making the decision a 7-year-old made in a moment of pain. And the cost? Real, deep, soul-level human connection requires vulnerability. It requires letting people in. It requires sometimes saying, "I need you." And if you can never do that, you can be surrounded by people who love you and still feel profoundly, achingly alone. Not asking for help isn't always maturity. Sometimes it's just a wound that learned to walk upright. Number 2, minimizing what you feel. It's not a big deal. There are people who have it way worse. I'm probably overreacting. I should just get over it. Sound familiar? This one is sneaky because it disguises itself as perspective, as emotional maturity, as being reasonable. But what's actually happening, and this is backed by decades of research on emotional development, is called chronic self-invalidation. And it almost always traces back to an environment where your emotions were either ignored, mocked, or punished. Think about it. If you grew up being told, "Stop crying, you're too sensitive. It's not that serious. You're being dramatic." Your brain eventually internalized that message. It learned that feelings are dangerous, that showing emotion leads to shame. So it built a suppression mechanism. And now you run that mechanism automatically on yourself every single day. You feel something real, grief, fear, loneliness, anger, and within seconds your own mind dismisses it. Not that serious, move on. But here's what the research is very clear on. Emotions that are not processed don't disappear. They accumulate, and accumulated suppressed emotional experience transforms. It becomes chronic anxiety, unexplained irritability, a low-grade numbness that makes life feel flat, a disconnection from yourself that you can't quite explain but can't quite shake either. Your mind thinks, "If I don't feel it, it won't hurt." But you are feeling it, you're just feeling it, underground. And underground, it's doing far more damage than it ever would have if you just let yourself feel it in the first place. Number 3, feeling responsible for everyone else's emotions. Does your stomach drop when someone near you is in a bad mood? Do you scan faces the moment you walk into a room? Do you find yourself changing your behavior, your tone, your energy, even your opinions, based on how someone else seems to be feeling? You might have been told this is empathy, and yes, empathy is part of it, but what I'm describing goes deeper than empathy. What I'm describing is hypervigilance. Psychologists who work with trauma consistently identify this pattern in people who grew up in unpredictable emotional environments. Maybe a parent's mood was volatile. Maybe tension in the house could shift without warning. Maybe love felt conditional, warm one day, withdrawn the next. In that environment, your brain learned something critical for survival. If I can read the room fast enough, I can protect myself. If I can sense that mom is upset before she explodes, I can adjust. If I can feel dad's tension before it turns into something worse, I can disappear. Your emotional radar became your safety system, and it worked. It protected you. But now you're an adult in a workplace, a friendship, a romantic relationship, and that same radar is still running, still scanning, still assigning your emotional well-being to other people's moods, still making it your job to keep the peace, smooth the tension, make everyone comfortable. And here's the brutal truth. You cannot regulate the entire emotional world around you. It is not your job. It never was. And every time you pour your energy into managing how other people feel, you are abandoning your own inner world. That exhaustion you feel, that's not just being tired. That's the cost of carrying emotions that were never yours to carry. Number 4, making jokes about your own pain. Yeah, I have like 1,000 traumas. My entire personality is a coping mechanism. I'm fine, completely emotionally destroyed, but fine. You laughed at that. I know, because it's relatable, because maybe you've said something exactly like that. And humor is powerful. Humor is healing. Humor is human. But there is a version of humor that isn't healing. It's hiding. And the difference is important. When you can only discuss your pain through irony, through memes, through self-deprecating jokes, when the moment a conversation gets genuinely serious, you deflect with something funny. That's not processing. That's armor. Your nervous system is doing something very specific here. It's allowing you to touch the topic of your pain without actually landing in it. Because landing in it, truly feeling it, activates something your system still perceives as dangerous. Old memories, old sensations, old grief that never had anywhere to go. So you skim the surface with a laugh. And everyone around you thinks you're doing great. You're so self-aware, you're so funny about it. And meanwhile, the wound sits exactly where it's always been. Untouched, unintegrated. The laughter is real, but so is what you're laughing over. And what you're laughing over deserves more than a punchline. Number 5, pulling away when someone starts to love you for real. This is the one most people won't admit to, but it's also the one that may be quietly destroying the most important relationships in your life. Here's how it feels from the inside. Things start well. There's connection, interest, warmth, maybe even intensity. And then, something shifts. You can't always explain it. You start noticing their flaws more, you feel less interested, you become emotionally unavailable, you create distance, and eventually, either you leave or you've created enough distance that they leave, and some part of you is almost relieved. And that relief is the tell. What's happening is this: your nervous system has learned, through real experience, that closeness leads to loss, that vulnerability leads to betrayal, or abandonment, or pain. And so when someone actually starts to get close, when the relationship starts to feel real, your threat response activates. Your brain isn't thinking about this relationship. Your brain is thinking about the old one, the one where love felt unsafe, the one where opening up got you hurt. And it says, get out before it happens again. So you leave, or you push them away until they leave. And then you're alone, which is exactly what you feared most. And somehow your brain files this as confirmation. See? Closeness always ends in loss. You didn't lose them because love is dangerous. You lost them because your nervous system was still fighting a war that ended years ago. And the cruelest part? You recreate the very thing you were trying to prevent. Hey, before we go any further, I want to say something honestly. If you've made it this far, something in this is landing for you. And that takes courage, because most people click off the moment a video starts getting too real. If this is giving you language for something you felt but never been able to name, please hit that like button right now, Subscribe if you haven't yet. Every week I put out videos designed to help you understand yourself at a deeper level. And if something I've said today is sitting with you, drop it in the comments. You don't have to have it figured out. Just say what's true. Now, let's get to the part I promised you at the beginning. Here's the question I want you to sit with. When did you learn to be this way? Not as a judgment, as an honest inquiry. Because here's what the most current research in trauma and neuroplasticity converges on. These patterns are not your identity. They are learned responses, and learned responses can be unlearned, or more precisely, they can be updated. Your brain is not a fixed machine. It is a living, adaptive organ that is constantly updating its threat assessments based on new information and new experiences. The patterns we've been discussing were installed when you were young, when your world was small, and when you had very few options. They made complete sense then. They just haven't been updated. So how do you update them? Step 1. Name it without judging it. The moment you catch yourself doing one of these things, isolating, minimizing, over-caretaking, joking away pain, pulling back from connection, don't criticize yourself. Don't spiral into shame. Just name it, out loud if you can. There's the independence pattern. There's the hypervigilance. There's the deflection. This sounds simple. It is not easy. Because the moment you name something without judging it, you create space between you and the pattern. You become the observer rather than the automatic response. And in that space, however small, choice exists. Neuroscientist Dan Siegel calls this name it to tame it. When you put language to an emotional pattern, you activate the prefrontal cortex, the rational, observing part of your brain, which literally calms the threat response happening in your amygdala. The science is real. The practice is simple. The consistency is what transforms. Step 2. Ask the question that changes everything. When did I first learn that this was necessary? Not, why am I like this? That question leads to shame spirals. This question, when did this make sense? Because at some point, it did. The extreme independence made sense when no one was reliable. The minimizing made sense when expressing emotion led to punishment. The hypervigilance made sense when the environment was genuinely unpredictable. The distancing made sense when closeness reliably led to pain. When you find that memory, even if it's blurry, even if it's just a feeling more than a clear image, something shifts. You stop seeing yourself as broken. You start seeing yourself as human, as someone who responded intelligently to a difficult situation. The compassion that unlocks is not weakness. It is the actual foundation of change. You cannot heal something you're still at war with. Step 3. Practice microdoses of safe vulnerability. You don't have to immediately become someone who asks for help with everything, or sits in their emotions for hours, or pours their heart out to every person they meet. You start small, deliberately, strategically. Tell one person one true thing about how you're actually feeling today, not the I'm fine version. The real version, even if it's just, actually, I've been pretty anxious this week and I'm not totally sure why. Let someone do something for you, something small, without deflecting or minimizing. Just say, thank you, I appreciate that. When you feel yourself pulling back from someone you care about, pause. Don't necessarily push forward, just pause. Ask yourself, is this distance based on something real that's happening right now? Or is this my nervous system running an old program? Each one of these micro moments is a message to your nervous system. It says, this is different. You are safe here. You don't need the armor right now. And over time, not overnight, not in a week, but over consistent time, your nervous system updates its threat assessment. The wall doesn't have to come all the way down. It just has to develop a door. Step 4. Understand the difference between processing and performing. A lot of people who have done reading or therapy or self-development work become very articulate about their trauma. They can explain their attachment style, name their patterns, trace the origin story, and still feel nothing. Still live nothing different. That's because understanding alone doesn't heal. Felt experience heals. This is why the joke pattern is so seductive. Because talking about your trauma with irony gives you the intellectual satisfaction of having addressed it without ever having to actually land in the emotion. Real processing feels uncomfortable. It feels like sitting with something rather than explaining it. It feels like letting a feeling move through your body without immediately contextualizing it, minimizing it, or turning it into content. The next time something hurts, before you minimize it, before you joke about it, before you explain it away. Just stay with it for 60 seconds. Don't analyze it. Just feel it. Notice where it lives in your body. Let it be real. That 60 seconds is braver than most people will ever be. Here's what I want you to take from today. You are not broken. You are not damaged beyond repair. You are not destined to keep living out these patterns forever. You are someone whose brain did exactly what a brain is supposed to do. It found a way to keep you alive, to keep you functional, to protect you from pain. And it did its job. It got you here. But you are not that child anymore. You are not in that house, that classroom, that relationship, that moment of fear. Your nervous system doesn't know that yet, but you do. And that knowing is the beginning of everything. The patterns we talked about today, the walls, the armor, the hypervigilance, the jokes, the distance, they are not your personality. They are not who you are. They are what you learned. And what was learned can be relearned. What was built for survival can be rebuilt for living. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most profound things a human being can do. Look clearly at the adaptations they built in pain and consciously choose something new. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to start. Name the pattern. Ask when you learned it. Take one small step towards something that used to feel unsafe. That's it. That's where change actually lives. Not in the grand gestures, but in the quiet, consistent, courageous small ones. If this video reached something in you today, something real, something you've been carrying quietly for a long time, hit subscribe. Because every week, this is what we do here. We go beneath the surface, we look at the real things, and we give you tools that actually work. And if someone in your life needs to hear what you heard today, someone who's been hiding behind independence, or armor, or laughter, share this with them. Sometimes the most healing thing we can do is simply say to someone, I saw this and thought of you. I'll see you in the next one.